do termite treatment, we do termite inspections, all those kind of things. We're located down the street in Lake Mary, so we're local. Yeah, that's a little bit about us. Do you know your license number as an agent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In home inspections, the license number is sequential, right? So the first person started with 1. All right, so they're up to like 15,000. So to give you an idea how long I've been doing it, they started licensing in 2010. Yeah. So, but you can always kind of get an idea of their experience by their license number. Give an idea, we cover from Orlando, all of Orlando, from Tampa to Daytona. Okay, so we pretty much cover all Central Florida. And we have an office staff. We actually have people you can call and schedule. Michelle's great. I mean, if you've ever had an opportunity to work with Michelle, she's really been with me 7 years. So I'm blessed with that. But everything that we do is based on intentional convenience for you and your client. Okay, there's a lot of inspectors that do good inspections, and some present it differently than others. But we always have the best interest of you and your client in mind. So everything that we put in place, as far as having an office staff, we do inspections on Saturdays and Sundays. We did one on Sunday. We did one on Saturday. Everything's convenient for you. We also have a mobile app where you can actually order an inspection online. So if it's 10 o'clock at night or whatever, you can actually order it, set it up, and lock it in. And then also, if you need to call, we have a scheduling service that's there 7 days a week, up to about 10 o'clock at night. So you can always call and at least get that information in there. And one of the things that we do, which I think is a good thing, in fact, Bob, we have to make sure Bob gets his package. One of the things that we do is when you refer us to a client, we provide you with a closing package. Okay, and it's something that's tangible. What we'll do is put your picture on a mug, your information, and also the picture of the house and something stating thank you for allowing me to be your agent. And it goes to the buyer. So it has your picture, your information, and we put it together for you. It has nothing about us on it. So the idea is to help you grow your business, and hopefully you'll refer your customers to us.
There's also address labels that he prints out with a new address for them and postcards.
Yep. Yeah, the postcard says we move on it. We moved, and it has your picture on it, your contact information. They can just send it out to their friends, which is pretty cool. So the idea is to stay in front of it, and then stay in front of them. And then we also have one other thing I'll talk to you about in a minute. But today what I want to talk about is everything to do with home inspections. Because we do provide so many services, it's definitely a lot of good information. But how long have you guys been in real estate?
6 years.
6 years, okay. So if you want to share anything, something new that came up that you didn't know about, that would be great. I'd be glad to hear it. And, something that we didn't know about, like for example, homes that are built 1950s. We know about FP panels and those kind of things, but also now what they're doing is the insurance companies will not insure a home that has cloth wiring, and that's the main feed wire. So like a 1950s house will have a cloth jacket around it.
Is that the knob and tube?
They won't accept knob and tube, but it's different than knob and tube, because knob and tube is like the early 1900s. Hopefully that's when they put it in, so it should be there now.
I have that in my house in North Dakota.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
1913.
Great. I have to introduce you to Chris, our other inspector. It's not similar area, Montana. Yeah.
I'm not from North Dakota, but I have a house in North Dakota.
Oh, okay.
I'm from Wyoming though.
Oh, good.
So Montana
That's cool.
there, so.
Where it snows really heavily.
Yeah. Still,
There's
right
big
now.
skies up there, right?
What's that?
Big
Big
sky.
sky.
And so what it is, it's actually the metal wire, and it's wrapped in cloth. So there's nothing in between the two wires, pretty much. So when it might be cloth, but it breaks down. So they want those replaced now. So it's the main feed wire lots of times. So they have to replace that.
Now, when you're saying main feed, are you saying from the outside panel into the sub panel,
Yeah,
or
so
the
main,
outside?
Yep, the main feed panel. So it's coming into the main panel, which is where the single breaker is supposed to be, and then it feeds out into the other sub panels. Yeah. So that's something that we're looking for now.
Down in the 50s, did they not have a sub panel, or was there? And I'm assuming it was more of a fuse.
Singular panel. Oh, you mean breakers?
Yeah, well, the 1950s.
Old glass fuses,
Right.
round ones.
We had, in the 50s homes that I lived in growing up here in Central Florida, it was still had the actual fuses, the screw-ins, the little glass.
Yep.
So is from the outside panel, you're referring to the from the main panel from the outside.
Yep.
Supplying
Yeah.
the sub
So you
panel
got
is the cloth wire
Right.
that you're referring to.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, like the house I just did in Sanford had 3 sub panels. They're all G's. They were newer, but the main panel on the outside sent the wires. That wire going from that to the 3 inside the house.
So
Those
that is
3
the-
wires have.
That's the homeowner's responsibility, not the power company's
Yeah,
responsibility.
anything from.
From the outside panel in.
Right. Yeah. So feel free to share anything with me that you may have heard that's a little unique or new to you. Okay. Right. So these are we pretty much everything you can think of. We pretty much do. We don't do appraisals. We don't do surveys, elevation certificates. Pretty much most of everything has to do with inspections, pest control, mold, stuff like that. Technology, we use infrared cameras to look for moisture issues. So every inspection we do a mold survey. We don't charge extra for it. So we use that equipment. Also a moisture meter, which is a common thing. Termite inspections, sometimes, it's not so much in our area, but other parts of the state, pest control companies will do termite inspections for free. Okay, we all know nothing's for free, right? So some people bite on that. Of course, they want to make money on the back end. But one of the things that we do, which is unique, is that lots of times you have moisture around the windows, right? It's Florida. So we actually use a moisture meter around the window also to look for that. So when we do home inspections and part of the termite inspection, that's when some of the technology we use. Okay. And then every home inspection that we do, we give a 90-day guarantee, which basically says that if you, let's say the water heater's working fine, everything's good, and it kicks the bucket, within the 90 days, then we'll cover up to $500 to repair or replace that. Okay, and that's us. It's not a warranty service. It actually comes from us. So that's one of the things we stand behind our inspections. Microwave, stuff like that also. Roof leak, we cover that also. It also covers $2,000 structural. So if there's something structural that we missed, which we're just not going to miss that, but if it is, we cover up to $2,000. So these are all things, just added value that we provide to the customers to give them peace of mind, so that when they use us, they know that we're going to stand behind what we do. Every home that we do a termite inspection on, we also provide a 90-day guarantee, which means that if there's any new termite activity, then we'll come and treat that free. So we charge for that. And all of our pricing comes with a 110% price guarantee. So if a competitor has the same credentials, which nobody in the state does, but we still will match it. So we'll match it and we'll give them 10% of the difference. So it was like $50 difference, we'll give them $50 plus another $5 on top of it. All right, and this is what I want to talk to you about earlier. This is called Digital Home Binder, and this actually places you in front of your customer, your client, probably 4 to 5 times a year. And what it is, we pay for it. It's free for the customer. It's free for the rest of their life. And what it does is it communicates things with like some scheduled maintenance reminders. So if they want to change their filter, if they want to set it up to change every 60 days, they can set it up. It'll remind them. They can put their appliance information in there, and if there's ever a recall, it'll notify them automatically. They can also put their inventory in there as far as taking pictures of the home in case there's theft or fire, so they use it as a repository. And like you're going through construction, so you have paint colors, right? You put that information in. So it all stays in there. And whenever they go to sell the house, you're the agent of record in that. So whenever they get notification, that's going to be coming from you. Okay? So it keeps you in front of them, and it's not intrusive, it's extremely helpful. We pay for it, it's free for the rest of their life. So I just want to share that with you. Did you set yours up? And then we also give them a free home maintenance manual. So with each inspection, we just give them manuals so they can use it to, especially first-time home buyers, it's real helpful. So that's something we give them also.
So Ron, setting that up with the agent, when you mentioned it to Bob, what does that entail?
Setting up for the agent?
Yeah.
I think he pretty much needs to sign up for it.
Just
So
online?
gets a link, yep, goes right to him, and then it just puts his
I was gonna say,
information.
Ron, I was just checking, I don't remember seeing a leak.
So you send the homeowner and the agent
Yes.
a link for it? Does the agent have to do that each time, or is
No,
it
one
just
time.
one time
Yeah.
setup with the profile
setup.
information?
And then you'll stay in contact with the customer basically the rest of their
Okay.
life. Yeah. Because it's set up, because every year it just keeps going.
How many times throughout the year? It all depends on what the customer puts in it.
Yeah, see if I can kind of pull this up here. And then we'll make sure you get a link, Bob, in case you didn't
Okay,
find
yeah,
out what
I'm-
happened
Searching my email now, I do not see it.
there. Okay. It's the insulation guy.
The app is called 2020 VR.
That's for ordering, I think.
You said that there was an app. Finding the app.
Yes, I will send it to you. Actually, I'll send it to you via text, and you can actually save it to your the screen on your phone. Just to give you an idea. Yeah, so it's going. You can set it up for whatever. Like I can actually set it up to go out every 2 months or whatever. But to give you an idea, like 23 maintenance reminders were sent out this week. So it went out to 23 customers based on, whatever it is, because you're changing your filter every 30 to 60 days, whatever they want to set it up. So that'll at least go out every 2 months.
Okay.
So it's not too intrusive,
Just more time of getting your face in front of the customers.
And it's
Always helps, and
kind of
they're
like-
asking for it.
Yeah, and it's one step. I'll get you a link. It's one step, and then you're set up. So, and that's what you want. It's passive, but it's also there in front of them, so you don't have to worry once it's set up. You don't have to go back in. The other thing also is that when you go to set up, I believe it probably asks you for your photo. We pretty much try to steer your photos off the internet to set you up, but if not, you can add your photo in there. Okay. Common inspection findings. So, of course, the biggest or most expensive item on a home to replace, unless it's a structural or wiring or something, but typically it's the roof covering, all right? And then, your air conditioning system. So, one of the things that we find as far as our biggest issues, like right now we're dealing with a lot of homes with polybutylene because people are buying homes in that time period. So that's something we look for. Insurance companies want to know if it's just at the water heater or throughout the entire home. Okay. You can, of course, get insurance with that, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's about $10,000, and that's pretty much all they'll cover. It's $10,000 limit. So, and there are 2 carriers. Who do you guys use with insurance? Who do you work with mostly?
Typically Assured Partners.
Okay, so
FIS, yeah.
Okay.
And they've got a handful of companies that will cover it, but it's usually, what John would say, it's probably a 10 to 15% higher premium. obviously they'll allow, 30, 60 days, whatever, or when the homeowner replaces it, they can then get their discounted rate
Good.
For that. But yeah, it's good old Polly.
Yep.
What year is that, about?
Typically 1990s in our market. Yeah.
Up to, but,
Yeah, I'll have it actually in here, so
Oh,
you
you
can
do?
actually write it down.
cause
Yeah.
I'm in Florida, I
Yeah.
never heard of that before, I heard of it, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so you've got your roof coverage, you have 3-tab versus architectural. So the shingles on the right side are architectural shingles. The shingles on the left are 3-tabs. Those are conventional. Those don't last quite as long, okay? So they're supposed to last 15 years, the 3-tab, but they're pretty much 11 to 12 years, okay?
In Florida.
In Florida, yeah.
Everything, nothing lasts in Florida,
Yes,
nothing.
the water. We have droughts too. So. And then they give you 25 years or so for the architectural shingles. Okay? When we do an inspection, we look for, we'll give them up to 22 years. So if we're doing an insurance inspection, they want to know the current age, current condition of remaining life of electrical, plumbing, roof, and air conditioning. So if a house is 15 years old and it has architectural shingles, then we believe it has 7+ years remaining life, somewhere around there. So, and one thing also is pretty much every home now is getting an insurance inspection of one type or another, whether it's a 4-point wind mitigation, roof certification, those kind of things. So one thing we do is when somebody calls us to book a home inspection, we know whether they're going to need a 4-point, which is for older homes, or a wind mitigation. They're going to benefit from that. Because we actually have probably done 10,000 insurance inspections, so we work closely with Assured, FIS, and have for years, and with other insurance carriers. But what we don't do is we don't actually charge them for that inspection, even though we know they're going to benefit from it, until after they close on the house or when they decide they're going to close on the house, so they don't have to pay for it up front in case they don't buy the house. Okay? So they can
And
always
how much
call
do you
us.
charge for it after?
It's 99. Well, we do everything array. So we do the inspection, we do the report, we have it ready to go. So it's typically, if we go out on a standalone, it's 99 to 125 for one. It's 99 if we already did the inspection, we were already there. It's $99. So if they need a 4-point wind mit, then it's only 165. Shaded roofs last longer. We get another couple of years out of them. Lighter colored shingles will actually last longer also. So your darker shingles will last a shorter period of time. If they've done a roof over, where they have an original roof and they put another roof cover over, then it'll reduce it by 3+ years as far as the life, because it heats so much. And in Florida, you're only allowed 2 roof coverings. You can't have 3. All right, and then I used to love these, but I've been doing so many high-end homes in the last 2-3 weeks, and they just all have leaks. Okay.
Well,
The tile roofs are great; they last a long time, but the underlayment breaks down, and that's typically the issue. So, if there's an issue, they have to remove the tiles and fix the underlayment, put the tiles
I
back.
have a question.
Mhm.
My neighbor's roof, I can see it from outside, and there's a whole section of missing tile.
Hmm.
And they told him that was fine.
Who told them that
Makes
was fine?
sense.
The roofers or the man, I don't know. We live in a new build, and I'm like, I showed him. I had him come in my house, and I'm like, your roof is missing like a whole section of tiles, and they told him it was fine.
That's
Yeah, no.
That's not fine.
I didn't think so. I was like, I don't think so. And I look at it every day. I have to
You may
see
know the
this.
stats on it, but the underlayment can only last so long.
So
It's
long.
only, yeah.
Right, it's gotta have a protection, otherwise why wouldn't they put something
Yeah,
over it,
get
right?
ready for a leak around
Yeah.
20 to 24 years for the underlayment.
Yeah, I was like, and it looks ugly. I have
Yep.
to look at it every day.
So yeah, the manufacturer life is 50 years for both tile types, and they can last up to 100 years. Okay. The underlayment typically lasts around 25 years. Doesn't mean you're going to have a leak in 10 years. It's just pretty much that's when there's just a higher probability of leaks after that.
So then would you have to take off the whole thing or just repair it?
Just
You
that
can
section.
just
Find that section, right? Average cost to replace tile roofs, $35,000. You doing the whole thing?
No, I just, no,
50,000?
I just sold my house that had a tile roof and we were looking at $75,000.
Wow. You know, and all this information we actually have to have. We have to describe it for the wind mitigation and for the 4-point.
Ron, on a replacement of a tile roof, most of the time the
They're
tiles.
replacing it.
What's that?
They're replacing
Yeah, they're replacing probably underlayment and tile.
Yeah, and then putting it back on.
Yeah.
So they're taking it off, putting it back on.
Yes. So and of course the fees of it's heavier, the dump fees, all that stuff. But many times if the tile is good, they'll stack it to replace underlayment to relay the same roof. Correct?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
That would make
Right.
sense.
Because
Yeah.
if it lasts for 100 years.
Because what do you know, it's very durable, and then you've got to get rid
Yeah,
of it.
the only time I've seen it where they've like, look, you're not going to get matched on this. It's an older tile, that type of thing. There's too many cracked ones.
Yeah.
Then there could be an issue.
All right, is everybody familiar with wind mitigation?
Stephanie, Stephanie, come on in.
Yeah. Wind mitigation?
What's that? I'm
Please
sorry.
explain, I just know you guys do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
we're just gonna find.
All right. So, what's the perfect house for an investor?
What's that?
What's the perfect house for an investor?
One that makes money.
Right.
Right.
And a hip roof is actually going to be a bigger discount than a gable. But also, I think if you have terrazzo floors, that's great for an investor if you remember that, right?
Right.
Can't destroy those. So, one of the things that we look for is opening protection, the roof to wall protection, things like that. So what they want to know is, and the wind mitigation inspection is physically challenging. Okay, it's not like walking around the house, you're not walking the roof. You have to get on your hands and knees and crawl to see how the roof is attached to the walls, and you have to take pictures of it while you're trying to hold on. Right? I mean, it's a challenge. Yes, and but that's what they want to know is, and that's where your biggest credit typically is, the biggest discount in insurance is the roof to wall connection. Okay, so how did they attach the roof to the house? There's different ways. They use clips, they use straps, and straps actually go up out of the block. It's bonded into the concrete block, comes out, wraps around the truss, and gets nailed. Okay, there's something called a 3-nail rule. So if they only put 2 nails in, they're not going to get pretty much any credit. Okay, so they have to have 3 nails, and they can have 3 nails going up one side and not wrapped, or they can have 2 on one side and 1 on the other. And that's something we have to look for. We actually have to get pictures
And
of those.
what year approximately, I guess, was this introduced, or what needed to be done? I'm saying older homes, are they better constructed or less than the newer ones due to this
Yeah.
nail thing?
So what I'll do is we're going to go. I think it's on the next page, and I'll tell you the age as far as what homes benefit from it, which ones are going to get credit typically. Opening protection, it's got to be 100%. So if they don't have, let's say they have plywood for all their openings, which includes gable vents, they actually have to cover that too. If they don't have protection for all those, then they don't get any credit for the opening protection.
Opening where?
So egress windows, doors, gables, garage doors, they have to have protection shutters or plywood that meets the code. And plywood has to be 3/4 inch plywood. So when we go do an inspection, we go looking to see if they have like kind of the metal corrugated type looking that goes over the windows, and then all the attachments are there, and that they're labeled for every window that they go on and every opening that they go on.
Even here in Central
In
Florida?
Central Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yep, 99% of homes here don't have
Yeah, I'm like,
opening
I've never
protection.
done
Okay, but some do, and if they do, they know, and they're like, "Did you get that?"
Yeah, the extra credit.
Yeah. And I checked with Liberty Mutual in like 2007 or 8. I had a house off Lake Mary Boulevard, about 2,400 square feet, and they said it would, if I spent $10,000 to cover everything, I'd get about $65 in savings.
Yeah.
So it doesn't apply here. So we like doing wind mitigation inspections in Central Florida, and the guys out on the coast don't like doing them because there's a lot more information they have to get. So we have to actually read the print on the windows to see if they meet the hurricane standard. So it's very detailed.
Well, if they do, you don't need the shutters. Okay.
Yeah, we have to, and it just, everything has to be 100%. Even when we're checking for the straps and the clips that hold the roof covering down, if there's one missing, or if there's one that has only 2 nails,
Then
they don't get any credit. So it's always, they go by the weakest. Sounds like an insurance company plan, right? I mean, okay. So here we're talking about wind mitigation discounts. So homes built after March of 2002 typically receive premium discounts without a home inspection. Okay, without the document. Now I know some carriers like Farmers is new in our area, and the other insurance inspection that they're requiring on all homes is a 4-point. It doesn't matter if it's new or not because they said they have no data.
Farmer?
So homes older than 1965 typically will not receive the roof-to-wall attachment credit because they toenailed the roof to the top plate. Okay, so you have your wall, you have your wooden plate, and then when they put the rafters, because they have a conventional roof where you actually have rafters and joists, where the newer homes have framed, right? They're trusses, they're brought in, they install them. Here they actually have the rafters, they come down, and then they have the joists, and then they nail into the side, and it's the toenail. So it can work loose a lot easier. So they typically don't receive that credit. And then 65 to 2001, 90% have a chance of receiving a premium discount. Now in 2002, the first 3 months, the first 2 months of 2002, they still will need, if their house is built in that time period, they will need a wind mitigation. And in March of 2002, they should already, and later, they should already get credit. Okay. The average savings is $300 per year, and it's good for 5 years. So it costs $99 for an inspection, and they potentially save $1,500.
do they normally just do that on a new house? Because I have a new construction, but my insurance is
yeah, you're-
outrageous.
Yours is built to new standard, so you're going to
it would
have,
be already in
is it a block home? 90% of things are block now.
I mean,
So-
the bottom.
Yeah.
It's a 2-story.
Yeah, so your upper story is going to have a clip, which is actually attached to the wall, and it actually turns, and then it's attached to the roof structure. So, yeah, you should be already be getting the credit. Yeah. Okay, heat pump package system. So there's 2 types of cooling and heating systems that are used in Florida as far as packaged and split systems. So what you typically see is the air handler, the inside unit, and the outside unit, which is the condenser. So that's a split system. Now in mobile homes, and some homes, they use typically a package system where they're combined. And it actually transmits the air from underneath. Okay. Does anybody know how a heat pump actually, it's kind of a contradiction, but how a heat pump actually cools? So what it does is it has a reversing valve, so it can heat and it can cool different based on the time of the year. So when it's cooling, what it does is it sends the coolant through a pipe, and it has aluminum fins, kind of like a radiator, and then air blows across those fins, and that's what cools the house. Now, in the colder weather, it has a reversing valve, and it actually sends the coolant through, and the coolant's actually heating. So it's heated, and it does the same thing. Okay. Gas furnace electric. So some homes, like my home, has a gas furnace in the attic, and then it has a air conditioning electric only on the outside. Okay, and typically those setups last a little bit longer because they're not using the heat pump for heating and cooling. And so 15 years is average life for heat pumps. New units do not last as long. All right, so we're finding out that the new units can be bad in 10 years. Okay, so where we're doing inspection reports, we'll give you the age, the tonnage, and well, if it's 10 years and older, we'll actually note that, just to let you know, and the buyer know that, hey, it's an older unit. So that's where HWA comes in,
Oh,
right? Is that who you guys use specifically?
Old Republic typically,
Old
or
Republic.
First American.
Yeah. So it's always good for that. I'm not a huge advocate for warranties, but with older homes with older air conditioners, it makes sense. Okay. So, how many people here have had their air conditioning break down in the middle of summer?
It's the best time. That's the best
Of
time.
course, that's when it always.
So mine last week, and it's 3 years old, and it was a capacitor, which is typically what happens in a newer unit that's working well. And it's about $170 to replace. So I put in there typically August, well, soon this year, because we had that hot spell, right?
Yep.
And it didn't make it through it. So I'm like, this is 3 years old. What? So then your exterior condenser pump is typically what needs to be replaced on the outside, and that's the biggest expense, and that's running about $2,000 now. Okay. And there's polybutylene.
There's your Polly.
Okay. So how you can tell polybutylene is, first of all, they were installed in 78 to 96. It says 95, but I've seen a couple in 96. Okay.
Yeah, our house is 96 I'm on now, and it's poly.
Okay. So, and it's typically, the connectors typically where it breaks down. And it's not, those type of connectors are not, the plastic connectors are not usually installed in a house. It's usually a mobile home. And typically the homes have a metal connector. And I don't see a lot of leaks from those, but the insurance company arbitrarily says we're not going to take the chance. So, I think it's running right now $4,500, including drywall repair. One thing when you're walking the house, what you can do is you can look at the water heater and see if the radiator is there. It's definitely great.
Yeah, what most of our stuff in our market is in the 90s, early to mid 90s, and it's actually most of them will still have copper coming out of the water heater into the wall.
Mhm.
Then it converts to
Yeah.
poly. So the only way you're going to be able to tell outside of the inspector knowing is checking under the sinks and checking the toilet
Right.
supply valve.
Right. And if it's a house that's like 12 years old plus, it should have a new water heater. It should. And if they're using copper, which is better anyways, that's better. Any other thing too? It's always great. Okay. You'll see some pipes out there that'll be red and blue, but that's like PEX. And they will have a crimp. See the metal crimp? So right here's a crimp here, crimp there. So that's one way to tell also. And you're all familiar with CPVC, the cream colored pipe? Right, so that's glued in, so that doesn't have any crimps. All right, so homes that have cracks, I mean, all Florida homes pretty much have cracks. And one of the things that we're telling customers if they want, if they're anal, and they've got to have their crack, their small little hairline cracks filled, they can try unsanded grout, and that might work for them. Okay? But you have the texture of the stucco, which would make it extremely difficult. Okay? But you really can't fix a hairline crack as far as filling it. There's no way; it's too small, nothing goes in it. So, you know, one of the things when they paint the next time, they can use an elastomeric paint, and it actually has some elasticity to it. We don't recommend it. And you don't recommend it because?
Long story short, the elastomeric paint that I had on my big family home prevented the house from breathing,
I've heard that.
and therefore I had to restucco the whole entire
Oh,
room.
Really?
so I do not recommend
You had-
elastomeric.
You had moisture got behind it.
Yes, so
Yeah.
my GC
So it
said
creates a
that paint
dam.
is great, Jacksonville North.
Hmm.
But because of the humidity and everything down here, not recommended.
What about the elastomeric caulk? Like not doing the whole house, but
That
caulking.
I'm not, that I'm sure, but the
That should be fine.
paint,
Because that's what I've used on my house. The siding, just sealing up siding where connecting. Where there's
Yeah.
stuff like
So,
I'm not an expert, I just
Okay.
know that it was
Your
not
terrible
good.
experience. that. Yeah.
for your elastomeric, anytime you caulk, it's good.
Yeah.
But the problem is if you create a dam or something that's gonna hold water,
Mhm.
that's the problem. When you
Yeah.
caulk, you have to do it really well and you can't just put it up there. Because if it's, you do it 90%, there's just open area there and the water gets there, then it creates
Moisture.
a dam. Yeah. That's funny about Jacksonville, because they have more issues with their stucco out there than anybody.
Really?
Yeah, they're known. Big inspection up there is an EFIS inspection, which is the exterior. Okay, and so 1/8 of an inch, that's the thickness of a nickel, so that's something that we look for. If we see that, we go ahead and report it to, we recommend a structural engineer. Okay. And we have one guy here, his name's Ron Devlin, he's in town here, and usually it's about $400. Okay, electrical panels and wiring. So the Federal Pacific Electric, FPE, when I first started doing inspections, I would report that, and the insurance company, one of the insurance company carriers, smaller, they're still in business here, they call me complaining about it. They're like, oh, it's not an issue. The electrician said it was okay. But in the other parts of the country, it had already been out there that it was an issue, and that the breakers weren't kicking. That's the issue. So you get the surge, and the breakers don't turn off the supply. Okay, so I think it was 2 years ago. It was on 2020, and now no insurance carrier will pretty much. If they don't want it, they want it replaced. So that's pretty much. Those are in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. The cost range $1,200 to $2,500, depending on whether or not both branch circuit and/or main panel need to be replaced. Okay. And it could be less or more, depending on who you're working with. If you're on the other side of the bridge here, if you're in Deltona, it might be a little bit less. If you're in Winter Park, a little bit more. If they go through the gate at Alacqua Lake, it's going to be more. All right, then the other brand is Zinsco Sylvania, and it was installed in homes throughout the 70s. So we
That
just,
one is no good?
Mhm.
I have not come across that one.
Yep, and we just did, probably about 20 years ago, I did a house, and I just saw one come up, I was reviewing a report from one of my inspectors, and 2 days ago, and the house had polybutylene FP panel and aluminum wire. Perfect storm.
Run away.
Yeah.
So I hadn't seen it since then until yesterday. I was like, okay. And there's one other brand, I think we'll get to that also. But the reason why these panels need to be replaced is because the breaker's not working the way it's supposed to. It's not turning off. So it's surging, it's not turning off. The other thing too is if you can see this panel here, this one actually has 3. These are actually pop-outs, so they've actually filled it so somebody can't touch and go in their breaker openings so they can't stick their finger in there. But if you notice, those are all stacked, and they're on a bar. So if you remove one, it's actually like gravity fed. So so it can actually shift. So the where it actually clips on the back of it, it loosens up. Okay. All right. So Challenger is another brand. Okay. And it was installed in homes through the 80s and 90s. And you can see that one definitely had a surge there. Okay, and then we actually had cloth wiring, good, so I was able to get that in there. All right, so you have aluminum wiring. What we're seeing now, one of the options you can use with instead of replacing the wiring is using an Alumacon connector. Okay, and that's what we're seeing, they're finally doing that, instead of just accepting it, they're actually putting aluminum connectors in there. And what that does is, it connects to the aluminum wiring tips, and it actually has copper coming out. So the outlets and the switches are actually attached to a copper wire. Okay. And I've been told it's about $45 per outlet.
Ron, explain the reason why the aluminum wiring is not liked.
So aluminum wire, a couple things, it's an alloy. So an alloy is actually different kinds of metal combined. And what it does is it expands and contracts. So as it expands and contracts, it loosens at the connections. And it also oxidizes. So an oxidize is kind of like, I've got a white van out there, and it's like a film over it because it's oxidized. So what happens is it reduces the flow of electricity when it oxidizes. And they typically don't require, I mean, you can get insurance with them, typically they don't require rewiring the home. Okay, we talked about the cloth wiring. Yeah, right, okay. So electrical panels and wiring, April 28th, 1974, 2 people were killed in a house fire in Hampton Bays, New York. And according to the CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission actually approves the Lumicom connector, so they're okay with that. In 72, so according to the CPSC, homes wired with aluminum manufactured before 1972, the old technology, are 55 times more likely to have one or more connections reach fire hazard conditions than a home wired with copper. Okay. That's pre-72. All right, any questions about wiring, electrical?
So what was the range for aluminum there before 72, but when did they start?
We just went through this. So we're talking about 72. I'll have to get that for you.
Okay.
I have it in my report. I want to say 72, but I'll get it for you and I'll give you the right information.
So basically the 70s.
Yes, you'll see it in the 70s.
Starting.
I just thought one of the 70s.
WDO termites, wood destroying organisms. Okay. Everybody knows that termites are wood destroying organisms. Do you know that there's other types of wood destroying organisms? Yep, but not in the state of Florida, they're not considered. The Florida Department of Agriculture does it because they don't do damage here. They actually will remove some of that cube rot and create a nest, but they don't actually eat wood or destroy it. So, anybody else? Anything else?
Sugar ants?
Ants do not.
No ants. Okay.
Moisture.
Moisture, yeah. So
Oh,
so
okay.
in Florida, we have WDO inspections. In Texas, they have WDI, wood destroying insects. Ours is wood destroying organisms. So we have the wood decay, which is considered a living organism because it has to break down the wood in order for it to decay, or it's the same, doing it at the same time. You also have powder post beetles, which if a home has that, it has to be tented, okay, and they can do a lot of damage. We'll see those in crawl spaces, typically I've seen them in downtown Orlando, the beams going across and they have small holes. Then you also have old house borers, and those make an oval opening, probably about a half an inch. But what they actually are is they come in the wood from the lumber supplier. And so what it does is it actually comes out of the wood maybe 3, 4, 5 years later
Great.
and looks for a mate, and if it doesn't find one, it dies, which typically happens. So if we see something like that, we actually will just recommend replacing the piece of wood, get rid of the piece of wood. But usually it's after the fact, because they've already come out, we wouldn't know.
So you replace it with a fresh beetle wood then. A new,
One, yeah.
maybe then they'll find the mate.
Pine from North Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana.
Okay.
And
So,
there was a beetle infestation in that area years ago that actually destroyed a lot of trees, pine
And,
trees. Somewhere.
Yellowstone, in Yellowstone,
Yellowstone.
because they didn't get rid of any of the burn and the trees that had fallen down,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so the National Pest Control Association estimates that termites do more than $2 billion worth of damage to American homes each year. A fee for an average size home treatment, and this is subterranean treatment with a 1-year warranty, is about $1,000. Okay, so if they're subterranean and it needs to be treated, then the way it's treated is with a liquid bait system, treatment system. Okay, so a home that has drywood termites, they actually typically have to be tented. Okay, the subs need to be, the ground needs to be treated and the location. All right, your drywood termites only need a little bit of moisture to survive and to procreate. That's about 10%. Your subterraneans, if the water supply has been removed, then they will pretty much go back down into the nest and go somewhere else. So they need moisture to continue to grow and to increase their colony. Okay. The subterranean termite can build a 1.2-inch mud tube in 60 minutes.
That's good.
Yeah. So it's serious. The most aggressive, that is the eastern subterranean, that's the most prominent in our area. The most aggressive is the Formosan. And the Formosan can actually live without water for a longer period of time because they create nests, it's called cartoning. It's kind of like a web, veins and so on, and they actually store water in there. So even though you remove the water source, they can continue to do damage. And a lot of pest control companies will not cover that Formosan damage. Back up here. So this is a house in Winter Park. You can actually see they're actually building a tube down to the ground. And what's happened is they came in from the outside. They were on the top sill or the sill plate, which is actually just above the stem wall, the concrete wall where the house is sitting on top. And they've worked their way in between those two joists, and they're also most likely in between the subflooring and the floor in that house. And they've come out so far that they're not going back to their water supply, they're looking for a new water supply, and they're going down to the ground. Okay, and these are extremely aggressive termites.
so what can you look for in a wood frame house that's on a solid block foundation? Because you're not going to get underneath, you can't see anything there, and let's say it's covered siding, stucco, whatever. What can you look for around the house or anywhere to kind of see if there's any termite activity?
Yeah, so one of the things in a house that's like that, you're talking about wood frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the stucco should not go down into the ground, okay? What it should do is, it should have about 6 inches, so that if there is any termites, they actually will come up the wall, and if they're covered, then you can't see them. So that's why we always report as being a conducive condition. And then what you want to do is, for those, when we do an inspection, we want to look to see if there's any dirt up near that wall covering. And then we want to remove some of it to see if there's any tubes.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll see tubes coming up the 4-inch slab into a wood frame. I just saw one in Deltona.
Going up, like up the concrete?
Yeah,
Going up the concrete?
way right up the concrete.
Okay, but if it's subterranean, are they coming up?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's subterranean.
they're going to get on the, okay.
Yeah.
So as long as they have that clearance there, then you kind of would see,
It's beneficial. It's not
Gotcha.
perfect.
right,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's what we look for.
Okay.
And then if we don't see that, then we report it as a conducive condition. And that's one of the things also that if we're doing, somebody calls out to a standalone termite inspection, even home inspections, but we're looking for conducive conditions. Does the gutter drain near the house, or is it draining away from the house? The condensate drain line for the air conditioner, that's a culprit people don't think about. There's a lot of moisture. And I have a 56 house, and I had subterraneans this past year because of all the rain, and then the air conditioner's running all the time. So I got to crawl under there and treat, because we have a crawl space.
Mm.
So, but I knew it because our floor started doing this. We have nice red oak hardwood floors.
Wow.
So
So on block construction, then what?
block construction, so I just did one over Orange, Kaiser, whatever. And there's a block constructed home there. It's probably 6, 7, 8 years old. And it came right up the block, inside the garage. All right. And what they were looking for is, you know how you have your garage door, and then you have your wood where the tracks are attached to it. They were coming up and they get in between that. So where that wood is attached to the concrete, that's where it's feeding in between that joint, basically. So they were looking for that. So I had in 2006 home, I had it, 2 years later, I had termites. And they actually came up with concrete and they were looking for the wood. But they need the wood.
Right.
But a lot of people are like, I have concrete home. Well, your house is
It's
not
not
100%
all
concrete.
concrete.
We all know that.
Right.
We've been in business a long time. So, that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, so this is the cartoning. This is Formosa. See the way it's webbed? They actually build that. They're very aggressive. So their nest holds water, and they'll continue to damage even when the water source has been removed. Quick question about, get back to termites.
Do you have a picture of them? I don't even know what they look like. I know, I've tried to Google it, but there's so many different.
Yeah. I will
Well,
send
you
you.
see.
I'll send you.
We don't have those in Wyoming.
No? No termites? What do you do?
I mean, maybe once in a while, I never heard of
Well, let's send some wood out that way.
it.
Wyoming, share the wealth.
Yeah, I will send it to you. They're very small. That big, maybe. But I have it kind of like University of Florida breakdown of it
Oh,
and stuff.
different.
So I
They're
can send it
different
to you
ones.
guys.
And they look different, right?
I
There's
could
the
send
two
it.
different ones.
They have wings, right?
Well, yeah, so the way what they do is, they need to build their colony or move to another location. So they will develop wings. And then they fly to the new location and they shed their wings. So they can actually continue to eat. So yes, they have wings. And people get confused with flying ants.
Flying ants. I tried to look that up because their wings are longer or shorter
Yeah.
or something.
So I mean, they're so small. The termite wings are consistent in length. So they have 4 wings, they're consistent in length. And we have to actually look at the veins in the wings to determine if it's a subterranean, if it's a powder post or a false powder post drywood, formosan. We have to look that up. It's not easy. Going to the ant has wings. They're different length size. So they have 2 smaller ones and 2 longer ones. Okay, and they have segmented bodies. You know what I mean? So actually, narrow waist they call it, where the abdomen of the termite is long and thicker. But it's hard to tell. I mean, it really is.
Just because there's bugs.
Yeah, right.
What's that?
There's
Those
bugs,
bugs
get
just
an
get
inspector.
I mean, I have the bond on mine.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not an attorney.
And I've treated it sometimes, but I don't think they treat it
Well, you
this
can
year.
always-
Did you have it treated every year?
No, you don't
No.
have treatment every year. No. It all depends on what's going on. So like when we do a warranty, because it's not really a bond,
Right.
everybody calls it a
Whatever,
bond.
yeah.
And like when then like agents will also call me and say, is it a clean WDO report? Clear? I'm like, no, it never is, because I can't see everything. That's the thing. So I didn't see anything, that's what I can say, but there could be termites there behind the wall somewhere. It just started. You know? So, yeah, it's funny. So the warranty, because it's a warranty that we're providing, basically. But everybody in the industry calls it bond, just like my attorney from the pest control side says, no,
No,
it's a warranty. Okay. Yeah. But if you see any, you can actually just send me a picture, and I can let you know. You know, if you're walking through, getting ready to list a home or something, then I'd be glad to help you with that. Okay, mold, 4-letter word. Right. So I did a house for Nick 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Remember that
Well,
house
46.
that's over by Old Souls or New Old
Yes,
New Old
yes,
Souls?
the Catholic.
It was a Jim Walter's home, or a manufactured
Yes.
home and actually had a
Oh, yeah.
basement.
Yes.
Yes. So that one had some kind of, I don't know if it had much mold, but it definitely had a lot of termite activity, a lot of, looked like a web and stuff. But it was actually, it's here in Sanford, and it actually had a basement, almost kind of a basement. It was almost like, when you build homes in Wyoming on the hills and stuff, you move the dirt from the front, where you put the house, and you move it to the back.
Walkout basement.
Yeah, backfill and stuff. But there was a lot of moisture under that house. Yeah. So mold. So your typical mold is Aspergillus penicillium. All right. If you're allergic to penicillin, you could get sick from it. All right. But this is what you see in your bathroom on your grout lines. I mean, not any of your grout lines, but some homes that you list, you see it. So rentals, if you see it. Mold. I just did a house in Eustis 2 days ago, and she had mold all over one of her walls in the closet. But there wasn't a leak. Okay, so what happened was the person most likely something was going on in that bedroom. They've been living there 7 years, tenants, and something had been going on in that bedroom as far as really couldn't figure it out. But you have to have an environment for mold to grow. You need moisture and you need heat. So something was going on in there, and it was in the closet. They must have had some moisture in there somehow.
Fish tank.
Could have been, yeah. Could have been, yeah. And if you actually look up research on how much moisture goes into your house when you wash dishes and all these, there's a lot of moisture actually that your house has to pull out, that your air conditioner pulls out. But if it's an environment where it's kind of enclosed and it can bake, it's hot, then you'll see surface mold. I've seen. I went to a condo a few years ago down in Kissimmee, one of the short terms, and it was nice. It had mold everywhere. On the TV screen, everywhere. Okay, that's more of a surface mold. This condensation is getting in there, and then it heated up. And it didn't escape. There was nothing there pulling it out. So a lot of people that come from the islands don't run their air conditioner. So they create it's an environment for mold. And we do rental property inspections. We've probably done completed 15,000 in the last 7 or 8 years. We've done up to 500 a year. And so we'll go in and we actually see, they're like, oh, well, I've got this mold. And so when they call us, and it's because they're not running their air conditioner. And it's why they call it air conditioning, because it actually pulls the air out. So it's conditioning the air, pulls the moisture out. All right. So your toxic mold is considered Stachybotrys. That's your black mold. If we do a sampling and we find one spore in the house, then we recommend remediation. Okay, and we've done that. We've actually done it and found just a small. We do air quality samples, so we can do that. And the biggest issue with those is that they're mycotoxins. Okay, and they produce it, and those toxins like the Stachybotrys, it isn't Stachybotrys when it starts. First you see it, it's like mold, and you're like, oh, that's black mold. It actually has to go through phases of growth to get to that level. So that means it's been ongoing for a while. So that's one of the things that there's Fusarium, there's 2 or 3 other kinds of mold. And I don't tell you just like scary or whatever. I mean, the idea is everybody's concerned about mold before. They come from different parts of the country and they're always wondering, what are you doing for mold? Or you do mold inspection and things like that. And it is a very kind of, it's a hard, the information that we receive is never clear enough for me to say, unless, I've stocked Stachybotrys or whatever. We actually have to get a sample for the outside and sample on the inside, so we have a baseline to start with. And if it's similar, so I did something in Greystone here for a doctor last month, and it was high Aspergillus penicillium. And it was throughout the house, and they were sniffing and stuff like that. But the outside, the back area and the front area, the community was just full of them. It's just because it's a wooded area behind it, there's a lot of moisture back there. So, was there really a mold issue with the house? No. The house was fine. It wasn't a leak or anything like that. It was just he lived in an area that had a very heavy concentration of that type of mold. And his daughter, scratching throat and all that stuff. Okay. Home built before 1978. So I just had an agent call me yesterday who's been working with me for about 16 years. And you don't deal with lead every day. So she had the question of, what's okay, what's considered okay by the EPA. And if the house has lead paint and it's been encapsulated, proper paint job, then that's accepted. Okay. And when we do sampling, because we do sampling also, it has to reach a certain level, okay, before the EPA considers it to be an issue.
So I'm a little bit confused on that one. So if it is built before 1978, do you have to do a sample or no?
For real estate, we just have to disclose that
Just
the
have
house
to
was built
disclose.
prior to 1978, and
up to
then
them.
give the buyer an option if they want a 10-day inspection period to do their own or to have an inspector do test. Yeah, we just have to disclose. And the seller's obligated to disclose anything that they may know about that, of the home, if they've ever had it tested themselves, and then to provide any documentation. But I will guarantee you, I've been doing this for now 17 years, and not once have I had a seller with prior to 1978 say they had ever tested it or any documentation.
They made us test it in California. We had to have our test.
California? I don't think so.
And I only had one
Preposition.
client in that time actually test.
That
Really?
actually tested.
Yeah.
Otherwise
We
it-
probably do 2 or 3 a year, which is basically nothing.
How much do you charge for the test?
It depends, because we do a lot of different types of testing. Here's the thing about lead. Same thing about Chinese drywall. Are you familiar with Chinese drywall? Okay. In 2006, I believe that was Katrina. Is that around Katrina?
2005.
Okay, so 5. All right. So what happened is all the drywall was going to Katrina. So 06 or whatever. And
Our
that-
market was booming.
Yes, and our market is and Chinese drywall came in, and it has a combination of minerals, chemicals, materials, whatever it is, and they actually break down the metal in the air conditioner throughout the house, and it has a sulfur smell to it, like a rotten egg smell to it, and you can get sick from eye infections, things like that. But the reason I brought that up was, in order for me to do a thorough test to make sure there's no lead in the house, no lead paint in the house, or Chinese drywall, I have to test at least every 4x8 piece of drywall for the Chinese, right? Because let's say somebody came in and they did a remodel, or they just built a closet. And with the lead, I need to do at least every room, okay? Because I don't know what they painted. I mean, so realistically, so when somebody asks us, we say, well, you have to pick and choose, because it's cost prohibitive to do everything. So, and it's not like we try to scare them and say, we got to do the whole house. We just explain it to them, that we're going to get what we can, and it's just going to be limited information.
Are you usually first? So, for instance, the lead. When this inspector did that lead test, he picked it up from undoing the faceplates of the electrical outlet to do his pull his sample from there. But I don't know how many rooms he did. Is that how
We do
you guys
from
are
there.
typically
Yep, under the ledge,
of?
the windowsill.
Okay,
Yep,
yeah.
under that, we'll go to a closet, corner closet. I think they're about $75 to give you an idea as far as cost, each sample. So, and it has to go to the lab, and then, the lab is the one that tells us what's going on. Yeah, so that's what we do, and, I have the 56-ounce home I know I have, on my fascia, I know I've got lead paint. Just the way it's separated. Just it's more flexible.
What's the return time from the lab?
It all depends on what your client's willing to pay, but usually 3 days for lead.
Okay.
Mold, 24 hours. Okay. Any questions?
A lot of good information.
I have a question on the Chinese drywall. Is it typically the 2005 and 6 when it was installed, or is it still?
No, it was just that short
Just
period
that,
of time,
okay.
based on what I know.
Four, 5, and 6 are the.
Okay.
And they, There was a class action lawsuit against Lowe's. And they did pay some money out there, because they sold it.
And most of what we've experienced in our market was South Florida, to Florida. There were reports that there were some in Kissimmee. I have not heard anything in our local market ever, but I don't know if you guys.
Zero.
Yeah.
Palm Bay,
Palm Bay was the closest
Is what I
that we heard. Okay, yeah.
which is right there next to Kissimmee. So. Hey, how you doing?
And by now, you've got